You're a hedgehog, and you have supersonic powers.
Ball up right now and roll! Action! Come on, honey, and your braid.
After the Sonic Adventure series was re-released on the GameCube, Sega had established itself as a successful third-party company. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle went on to become the 9th best-selling game on the GameCube, and Sega was ready to reach a new audience. In order to broaden their horizon, the adventure title would be dropped. The game was to be published on all 3 major consoles and PC, and once again, the focus would turn from the story to action and adventure.
I'm loving it.
Sonic Heroes was to be a soft reboot for the series. The art design would go back to a classic look, and instead of only focusing on a core group of characters, every goddamn character ever was added, because that's how you create a game that invites new fans. New features include team-based gameplay with 4 different teams surrounding 3 different archetypes. Speed, which is fast, power, which is strong, and flight, which is high. 1 new character and that's really it. The game isn't aiming to do anything new. It just wanted to be a 3D Sonic game. But my question is, has it been forgotten because it didn't do anything unique, or is it a hidden gem? There were development issues with the Xbox and PlayStation 2 version, as Sega had never developed for those consoles. The GameCube version is considered the best, with the alternate ports having severe frame rate issues. Even though I do own the GameCube version, I'll be looking at the Xbox version, mostly because it's easier to capture footage from it. So let's take a look at that story. First, we get to Team Sonic, which is comprised of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. The story begins and Sonic is running around the desert. Tails and Knuckles pull up next to him and Sonic says the single most common phrase in any Sonic game ever.
Long time no see.
Tails gives Sonic a letter from Eggman which states that Eggman will take over the world in 3 days. Team Sonic goes to stop him. Every time they think they see Eggman, it turns out to be a decoy, and the audience gets to see that it's a Metal Sonic looking character, disguising itself as Eggman. Oh, I love that dramatic irony. They infiltrate Eggman's armada and save the day. That's it. The Sonic story is simple and fun and relies on nothing but the gameplay. But we do need to find out why that definitely not Metal Sonic character sent Sonic and the crew on this wild goose chase. Next, we get to Team Dark, which is made up of Shadow, Rouge, and E123 Omega, a new character which is one of Eggman's robots who wants to kill everything. The story starts off with Rouge entering Eggman's secret base, and she finds Shadow locked in a container. She lets him out, but then Omega attacks him. Rouge breaks up the fight and states they all need to go looking for Eggman together, because also Shadow has amnesia. BT dubs, all the characters follow the same path, so the moment where it's revealed in Sonic's story that the Eggman is a decoy, we also see that there's a Shadow decoy. Shadow's like, is this real life? They leave and a Metal Sonic looking type says he has scanned the ultimate life form data. They infiltrate Eggman's armada and Rouge discovers a room full of fake shadows. And then apparently Shadow's amnesia gets so bad that he forgets he has amnesia.
I might as well go look for that Master Emerald, since that irritating Echidna is here.
Some things never change.
When picking a character-heavy story arc, either pick number 1, the character has amnesia, or number 2, the character may be a replica of himself. The reason they don't work at the same time is because the dramatic elements of possibly being a clone contradict the amnesia part. Because a character wouldn't care if he was a clone with fabricated memories if they didn't have the memories in the first place.
Even if I'm not real, I'm still the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Why would Shadow say that if he doesn't even know what it means? I have a suggestion that would make both the amnesia part and the maybe Shadow's not real part make sense. You know that Metal Sonic looking character that we keep seeing? Yeah, that's actually Metal Sonic in disguise. Spoiler alert. At the end of the game, what if Rouge only finds 1 Shadow capsule? And as she's opening it, the other Shadow comes out from behind her and starts to melt like the Eggman decoy did. Then, we find out that the Shadow you've been playing with the whole game was actually a Metal Sonic disguised as Shadow. It would add to established elements of the game's story and make both the amnesia and possible replica story make sense. Team Rose. Cream the Rabbit loses her Chow, Big loses Froggy again, and Amy wants to bang Sonic. They go on a quest to find their friends and something cracks and Amy finally realizes that she needs to threat Sonic to get with Sonic.
Amy, what are you doing here?
Sonic, this time there's no way out of marrying me. Sonic, give up. This time you're mine.
All but Amy successfully reached their goal. There's not much else to say. Team Chaotix story begins with Vector the Crocodile, Charmy the Bee, and Espio the Chameleon getting a package from a mysterious client. They all need money to pay the rent, so they take a non-descriptive job that eventually turns out to be rescuing someone from Eggman's base. Vector makes observations about the pseudo-Eggmen, and then he comes to the conclusion that they are in fact rescuing Eggman from Eggman's base. When they ask to get paid, Eggman can't pay them. I have to admit, I enjoyed the Chaotix more than I should have. I know a lot of people think they're annoying, but here, we don't get a massive amount of time spent on their dialogue, so to me, it's the perfect amount. After you beat all the stories, you find out that Eggman was captured by Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic transforms into a big Metal Sonic, and all the 12 characters have to beat him up. After that, Metal is looking all pathetic, and Sonic says, "Hey, you can challenge me anytime." Omega picks him up, and Sonic advertises the game you just beat.
Yeah, we're Sonic Heroes!
Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look.
The plot of Sonic Heroes isn't as in-depth as the Sonic Adventure titles, so there's not a whole lot to criticize. What I do have to say about it, however, is that the presentation is better than both Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2. This is the only time we get to hear these voice actors both recording their dialogue under good circumstances and with proper sound mixing. Moving forward into the gameplay. Despite having 12 characters, there really only are 3 different playstyles: speed, power, and flight. First, your speed characters: Sonic, Shadow, Amy, and Espio. They're fast and have specific abilities that complement that. The homing attack returns. There's an ability to stir up wind and a spin dash type attack that's hardly ever used. Sonic and Shadow have a wall jumping ability and the light dash. Espio can turn invisible, and Amy has a projectile wind attack. You'd think in a Sonic game the speed characters would be the focus, but in reality they have the least amount of polished controls. They're too fast, and I know that sounds absurd, but stopping and changing directions seems impossible at times. However, because Amy's the girl, she's slower than all the other characters, and actually it makes her the most fun to play. Moving on to the flying characters, Tails, Rouge, Cream, and Charmy, all of them can fly for a short distance. They'll have a Thunder Shoot ability which allows them to propel the other 2 characters forward as a weapon, but Cream has a third projectile, her Chaotix. Charmy can open up a robotic flower, and Tails and Rouge have a dummy ring ability. Playing as the flight characters is extremely slow, and unless they're completely powered up, their characters can only stun enemies. Finally, we get to the power characters: Knuckles, Omega, Big, and Vector. Knuckles and Omega primarily use the other characters as projectile weapons, but Big and Vector rely on themselves mostly, by slamming their own weight down on the enemy. The reason that makes these 3 different archetypes integral to the gameplay is because enemies now have other requirements to beat them other than just jumping on their head. They have health bars now. Power characters can more easily drain enemies' health, flying characters can stun enemies, and speed characters can make enemies easier to hit. But it really slows down the pacing. But when you're able to get into a rhythm with the different characters and take down enemies, it feels rewarding. But it happens too often and slows down levels which are already absurdly long. Part of the way difficulty changes is through the level length. Team Rose ranges anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. Okay. Team Sonic ranges anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. And Team Dark ranges anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. The level length doesn't even contribute to the core difficulty either. Instead, it creates a challenge of will, which is easily seen in the last level of Team Dark's storyline, Final Fortress. You see, before an incredibly hard final section, there's a checkpoint. That's good. But the last checkpoint before that is about 6 minutes behind it. That's bad. If you keep dying and you play for close to 6 minutes each time you die, that time adds up very fast. I was originally going to criticize how hard certain aspects were, like this one ridiculously hard part at the end, but having an intense difficulty is okay. What's not okay is the hour of work to get back to it every time I get a game over. Even though there are unique aspects to the level, depending on who you're playing as, a majority is recycled and gets incredibly stale. It took me more time to beat this game than it did for me to play through both Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2, but those games have more unique content. Finally, moving on to Team Chaotix. I actually enjoyed their gameplay more than I thought I would. All of their levels are mission-based, and some can be incredibly easy, while others can be equally as frustrating as Team Dark. You can tell this game was built for linear platforming, and a lot of their missions require you to find things, but the levels aren't built for a collectathon. A lot of times, you can just play through the level and complete the mission at hand, But sometimes you need to run through the same level multiple times to find multiple objects.
So I want to clarify, I think this game had amazing potential, but the problem is it came out over 10 years ago, and the potential has burned into a legacy. And it's a legacy I cannot stand.
It's not because the game is bad either. I can tell effort was buried into it. The levels, despite being incredibly long, are awesomely designed. If there was a minimal amount of recycled material between the different stories, just to thread the unique parts together, this may be a great game. I didn't say good, I said great. The controls truthfully kill the experience that the levels want to create. It's like being on a really fun ride while in an uncomfortable seat. You're distracted from what should be fun. The characters with the speed archetype are too fast. While creating a distinction between the power characters and the speed characters, the power characters maintained a fast speed, and the speed characters turned their speed up way past 11 to fuck it levels of speed. Amy runs slower than the other speed characters, and she controls better. There were too many times where I would die because of this. It's most problematic when you're rail grinding, and let's just say that not all characters were built to do that. Ugh. A new mechanic introduced to grinding is switching between rails. By pressing the action button and the direction simultaneously, you can change what rail you're on, which makes it easier to avoid obstacles. But the problem is that it doesn't work. You'll often skip multiple rails and fall off the edge. When the difficulty is being built around rail switching, you're battling both the challenge of the game and the controls. I want to love this game. It looks really good. The levels, despite being really long, are really well designed and allow for almost rhythmic gameplay between the three archetypes. But the controls, the larger enemy health bars, and recycled levels kill the experience.
I'm not a game designer, but I really feel like there are only a few things necessary to make this game a great game. Not a good game, a great game. So here are some suggestions.
Number 1. Ditch the 4 stories. Each set of characters only have a few cutscenes integral to their story, so it's not necessary for them to play through the whole game. If the game had 16 levels instead of 14 levels, you could divide them up evenly amongst the different teams. But then you could go back and find secrets with other teams. Number 2. Shorten the level length. But short does not mean easy. Team Rose's difficulty was a joke. You can have the game progressively go from decently easy to fucking difficult, but there needs to be progression. Number 3. Have the speed characters slow down and the power characters too in order to keep a distinction between them. A common question I get is, what is my most hated Sonic game? I really don't think I can truthfully say I hate a Sonic game. It's not like I have a personal relationship with Sonic, but I can say Sonic Heroes is probably the one that bothers me the most. Not because it's the worst game in the Sonic series, but because it lost the most potential.
You don't get mad at somebody who's unintelligent, who slacks off and gets bad grades. You get mad at the genius who slacks off and gets average grades. Sonic Heroes is a game that deserves to be above average, but because of the unpolished controls, the recycled content, and the pacing issues, it just balances out to be an incredibly average experience, and it doesn't live up to the caliber it really deserves to.
Despite this, reviewing all these Sonic games has given me a more positive outlook on the series. I used to think Sonic was my guilty pleasure, but I realized that from an outside perspective, it's easy to view the Sonic series just as bad. But as someone who's really trying to look at these games objectively, as a Sonic fan, I realize that it's not a guilty pleasure, but it's comfort food. There's nothing to be ashamed of as a Sonic fan. It's just good fun, and nothing can kill that spirit.